One of the biggest reasons first-time leaders fail is because they work too hard. Strange, right? Because most people think leadership is about stepping up, working harder, taking more responsibilities, and being the strongest performer in the room. And it's exactly the mindset what causes many first-time leaders to fail. Because the skills that got you promoted are often the same skills that limits your leadership after your promotion. Recently, I was conducting a leadership class with a group of supervisors and team leaders with leadership experiences ranging from a year plus to around 8 years. During one of the discussions, many described the same experiences. Lots of firefighting, solving team members' problems, and rushing from one issue to another. Many of them thought this is leadership. This perception is very common among those new to leadership. You see, when you're first promoted into leadership, you usually got there because you were good at your work. You were reliable, responsible, capable, and fast to deliver results. So naturally, when you become a leader, you continue using the same mindset. If there's a problem, I solve it. If work is slow, I step in. If standards are dropping, I take over and work harder. It sounds responsible for any leader to do, except over time, the team becomes dependent on you. They stop thinking for themselves, wait for your instructions, and stop taking ownership. Eventually, you become the bottleneck for everything. Now, the painful part is that for many first-time leaders, they don't realize what's happening until they become exhausted and frustrated with leading others. They say things like, why must I do everything myself? Why can't my staff think or take ownership? Why am I always the one coming up with ideas and solutions to solve problems? One of the hard truths about leadership for many first-time leaders is that they are addicted to being needed. They think, if people keep coming to me, then I must be a good leader. When in fact, leadership isn't about being needed for every problem. If your team collapses without you, then you've been carrying them all along, rather than they carrying themselves. This is where I shared with the class that truly understanding what leadership is at different organization levels matters a lot. Organizations usually promote individual contributors or team members based on individual performance and their ability to deliver results and solve problems. But when you're promoted to lead a team, leadership is a completely different game and you're assessed differently. As the leader of a team, your success is no longer based on your personal output, but on whether your team can perform. You can learn leadership and management skills, but ultimately, you have to let go of that old team member mindset. And this is a hard transition because you have to let go of the thing that made you successful in the first place. So I want to break down 4 major mistakes first-time leaders make. And once you understand them, you will know why so many capable people struggle once they enter leadership. Team members do work. Team leaders create the environment for their teams to do work. Many first-time leaders still think like high-performing team members. Before leadership, your value comes from your personal output, your speed, technical skills, and ability to solve problems quickly. These things are part of you and your professional identity. So naturally, when you become a leader, you continue doing the same things. You think, if I work harder, meaning put in more personal output, the team succeeds. Just to show how common such thinking is amongst first-time leaders, I asked those in that class of supervisors and team leaders who only have the one team member. How much of the team's work were their team member doing versus how much did they themselves take on? The answer was that for those with only one team member, the team member was typically doing between 30 to 40% of the team's work while they did the rest. On top of which, my participants still had their supervisory and team leadership duties. Leadership doesn't depend on personal output as much as before your promotion. The moment you become a leader, Your work isn't just to produce results yourself. Your job is to create results through other people. That's a very different mindset. And many first-time leaders struggle here, including those in my class. The old team member mindset of personal output means solving every problem, handling every escalation, and taking over every difficult conversation themselves. Eventually, the team learns not to try so hard, since the boss will handle it. So, leading based on the team members' mindset of personal output means many first-time leaders are training dependency and becoming the team's bottleneck. Now, the difficult thing is this. Many first-time leaders think they're helping the team, but are actually making the team weaker. Because people grow through responsibility, taking ownership for themselves, and figuring things out. You step in too early, and your team never develops its own confidence. Now, of course, I'm not saying leaders shouldn't support their staff. That's not the point. The point is that leadership is not about carrying the work yourself. That's team member mindset. Leadership is about building capabilities in others, and you do so by creating the right environment for the team to develop and grow. That's team leader mindset. Many first-time leaders and even some experienced ones struggle with this because firstly, no one ever told them about this difference in mindset. Secondly, many leaders secretly enjoy being the smartest or most capable person in the room. It feels good to have others depend on you, praise you, and see you as important. But leadership isn't about proving your value. It's about multiplying value through others. Your team doesn't need you to be a top performer. They need you to be a leader who can develop performance around them. And even if leaders understand this, many still struggle to create the right environment. Struggling leaders focus too much on tasks. Strong leaders focus on the environment. This is something many people underestimate. Environment affects everything in a team. Clarity, trust, communication, ownership, accountability, morale, psychological safety, etc. All these things are shaped by environment and vice versa. If people are unclear about expectations, performance drops. If people are afraid to speak honestly, problems get hidden. If people feel punished for mistakes, innovation disappears. If communication is inconsistent, confusion increases. Often the issue with a team isn't their capability but the environment the team is operating in. Many first-time leaders miss this completely because they focus only on the tangibles, such as task, deadline, personal output, and execution. This is understandable because many first-time leaders still think like team members and focus on the work. But leadership isn't just task management. It's a lot of emotional management, particularly management of the team's environment to do work. The way you make decisions, your emotional intelligence in managing the emotions of others, managing expectations, people management, giving the team direction, conflict management, performance conversations, etc. All these contribute to the team's environment. This is why capable team members can still perform poorly because capability alone is not enough. The team environment matters, especially if you desire to motivate your team to keep them productive. Struggling leaders who don't know this will blame the team first. In reality, your team's behavior is just a reflection of the team environment you created. Leadership isn't about doing work. Leadership is about actively shaping the team environment so the team can successfully do work that produces results. And many first-time leaders are relying too much on their personal output instead of putting in effort to learn what it takes to create the right team environment for the team to succeed. Now, before we continue, if this video is helping you simplify leadership a little clearer, do help me like the video. It helps the channel reach more leaders who are trying to figure out leadership as well. Now, even if leaders understand environment, many still struggle for another reason. In the class of supervisors and team leaders, I had participants from psychology and counseling backgrounds. These are people trained in human behavior. Many people assume that leadership is common sense, and I can understand why. Because most of us have worked under managers before. So people think, I've seen leadership already, I can do this. But leadership is actually a separate skill set from the technical skills you developed as an individual contributor or team member. Decision making, conflict management, delegation, managing expectations, difficult conversations, leadership communication, these are learned skills. And many first-time leaders suddenly realize this only after they enter leadership. Just because you see it doesn't mean you automatically know how to apply it. Because before leadership, your technical skills are all you really need to be promoted. Leadership exposes your people skills. And this is why some technically strong people struggle badly when they become leaders. Not because they're not capable, but because leadership requires a completely different capability. And having good intentions to lead well isn't enough if you don't actually know what it takes to create the outcomes of having led well. Unfortunately, many organizations promote people into leadership before teaching them leadership. So people enter management roles stressed when they suddenly have to manage conflicts, emotions, politics, expectations, etc. This isn't a case of you should know. Leadership is managing human behavior. And even those participants in my class with counseling and psychology background had to learn how to apply their understanding of human behavior into the leadership context. That's why leadership development matters, because it's a separate skill set which has to be intentionally built. And even when leaders develop the right skills, many still struggle if they misunderstand the different roles leadership requires. In the class of supervisors and team leaders, many thought that leadership was a role that their boss and boss's boss did, without realizing that leadership is actually a role they had to be as well, alongside other roles at the same time. And this is where many first-time leaders become confused, because sometimes you have to be the boss, manager, supervisor, or leader to your team. And all four roles matter, even if you're just a supervisor or team leader in your organization. Now, the problem is that either many first-time leaders do not know the difference, or they overuse one role because that's all they know. Some rely too much on authority from boss mode. Others focus too much on relationships and influence and want to lead with big picture thinking. Some become overly operational and seek to manage all tasks. Others view supervising others as a series of checks, chase, monitor, and control. But all these simply mean their leadership is incomplete because different situations require different responses. Sometimes you have to be in boss mode and give direction. Other times you have to be their manager and provide them structure. The next time people need more close supervision and accountability. Every now and then you have to lead with inspiration and vision that's relevant for your team. Mature leadership means knowing which role is required at which moment. A boss uses authority. A manager creates systems and keeps an eye on work resources. A supervisor maintains standards and coordinates progress. A leader gives direction, builds trust, and exercises influence within the team. And if you desire to be a strong leader, then you need all four roles in the one person. That person is you. Leadership requires that you know these four different roles and exercise your judgment as to which role is needed. And I use the term leadership because in today's workplace, we are more likely to be leading minds than managing hands. And that's one reason why leadership can become emotionally tiring, because it's not just about work, but human judgment. Team members do work. Team leaders create the environment for the team to do work. I think the hardest part about leadership is realizing that success is no longer about you alone. It's about what happens around you because of the environment that you created. Many first-time leaders fail because they never fully make that transition. Just like in Mistake 1, where first-time leaders over-rely on their personal output. They get stuck trying to operate at the team leadership level with the mindset of a high-performing team member. They end up carrying their team, trying to control too much, and wanting to solve everything personally. When you have the mindset that you got to do things in order to prove your value, it's easy to see why a first-time or inexperienced leader would do that. Now, even if you recognize that your job as a leader is to develop a team with the right environment, as in Mistake 2, that's also not easy. Because creating the right environment for your team isn't one skill set, it's multiple. Performance management, having difficult conversations, understanding your leadership mindset, building trust, conflict management, etc. These are individual skill sets on their own, and if you're not effective in any of them, then you end up with a less than ideal team environment. Also, you have to avoid making mistake 3, that somehow, just because you have experienced leadership from your own boss, that you should know how to lead because leadership is instinctive. You still have to learn how to lead and apply it to managing the emotions and behaviors of your team. And lastly, not knowing that as a leader, you perform different roles at different times depending on the situation at hand. That's Mistake 4. Now, I've worked with nearly 1,200 team leaders and heads of departments, and I'll say that the transition from team member to team leader is probably the hardest. And so, if you finally understand that your job as a team leader is to create the environment for the team to perform well, then you've taken a step to make your leadership easier. Because the moment you become a leader, the game changes. You stop being measured only by your own performance. You start being measured by the growth, clarity, and performance of the people around you. And with that one promotion, one of the biggest mindset shifts in your life is needed if you desire for continued success in your career. So, what mistakes did you make when you became a first-time leader? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoy conversations that simplify leadership and make leadership concepts easier to understand, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. And if you want to ensure that the next video gets to your inbox, then I invite you to join our mailing list. The link is in the description below. Since we're on the topic of mistakes made by first-time leaders, here's another mistake that will stop your team from sharing ideas with you. Click it here to watch it.